Okay, and we are back to continue this chapter. Alright, so uh, right now we're going to learn about transport and assimilation of absorbed nutrients. Okay, so do you still remember what are the 5 processes? Right, remember we had a kind of an acronym to remember. I, D, A, E, idea. So what's I? I stands for digestion, D stands for digestion, A stands for absorption, A stands for assimilation, and lastly E stands for digestion. So these are the 5 processes that are involved in nutrition, and today we are going to focus mainly on assimilation. Okay, so assimilation means that the digested food molecules are converted into new protoplasm or used to provide energy. Okay, so remember we learned about protoplasm. Do you still remember what protoplasm means? So protoplasm refers to the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the nucleus. Okay, now let us talk about the nutrients. Okay, so once we get the nutrients, once we have absorbed the nutrients into our blood, where do they go next? Okay, we know that the human circulatory system will transport substances all around the body, but there's actually a very specific process for nutrients. Okay, so let's say you ate your food, right? And your food has been digested in the mouth, in the stomach, and in the small intestine. Then the nutrients were absorbed in the small intestine. Okay, so all these nutrients are absorbed. So where do they go? You can see here, these are the capillaries. Okay, and these combine together, so all these capillaries here combine and they form into a vein. So this vein then combines with all the other veins to form a hepatic portal vein. Okay, this is important. Please highlight everything on this keyword. Hepatic portal vein. Okay, this is the vein that transports blood that is rich in absorbed nutrients from the intestine to the liver. Okay, so what are the fate of the nutrients that we have? Okay, in the liver, excess glucose and amino acids are metabolized by liver cell. Okay, what does metabolize mean? Metabolize simply means that they are used in some way. Okay, how exactly? We'll go into detail. So most of the absorbed glucose is converted into glycogen and stored in the liver. Now remember that glucose is an immediate source of energy. Okay, so our cells in our body use glucose to get energy. And when we have too much of it, for example, we ate a heavy meal full of rice, right? A lot of glucose, right? So we store it as glycogen in the liver and also sometimes in the muscles. So just one more example here, the small intestine, right? When we absorb glucose, it enters into the hepatic portal vein, and then it enters into the liver. And at the liver, it will be converted into glycogen. You might also be wondering, what is this hepatic artery and hepatic vein here? Okay, so this vein and this vein is not the same. Be mindful, these are not the same things. Okay, so the hepatic artery actually carries blood from the heart to the liver, and the hepatic vein carries blood from the liver back to the heart. Okay, so why do we need this? It's because all cells need blood, right, to survive. So this gives it the blood that it needs to survive. Okay, now what is the fate of glucose specifically? So in the pancreas, so remember that we have learned about the pancreas. the pancreas secretes hormones based on levels of glucose in the blood. Okay, this one is a bit of FYI information, but it's also good for you to know. Okay, so insulin and glucagon are the main hormones in glucose metabolism. Okay, what does this mean? So, let's say you ate a heavy meal, okay? Then the glucose has been absorbed into our blood. So that means that our blood glucose level has increased. This would stimulate the pancreas to release this hormone called insulin. Okay, so what happens is that the insulin will then cause the liver to remove glucose from the blood and store it as glycogen. Okay, so what is happening is that there's this balancing act. Okay, as with all good things, sometimes too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So it's important that our body maintains a roughly constant level of glucose, so that our cells don't have too much. If not, it'll be bad for our cells. Okay, so all this excess glucose is removed from the blood and stored as glycogen, where? In the liver. Okay, but what if the blood glucose level starts to decrease? You didn't eat for a long time, 10 hours, you haven't eaten yet. So this would stimulate the pancreas to release glucagon, which is also a hormone, and glucagon will cause the liver to break down glycogen and release glucose into the blood. Okay, so glucagon and insulin, these are like opposites of each other. Okay, but they work hand in hand so that they can balance the amount of glucose in our blood. Not too high and not too low. Okay, so we have talked about excess glucose, right? Now let us talk about the excess amino acids. Now you notice that I'm saying the word excess. That's because we need some glucose, right, to give energy to the cells, and we also need some amino acids, right, so that these amino acids can be used to build up proteins in our body. However, if there's too much of it, then we call it as excess. Yeah, excess. So excess amino acids are converted to urea by the process of deamination, and this also happens in the liver. So what is deamination? This is the removal of an amino group from the amino acids. Okay, and this is happening in the liver. Okay, so over here we have a diagram of a amino acid. Okay, it's not too important to remember all these different things. Right, don't need to remember all this. All you know is that one amino acid will be converted into ammonia, and then converted into urea, and then excreted in the urine. Okay, so this here is our kidneys. Our kidneys are linked to our bladder. Okay, so these excess amino acids converted into ammonia, then converted to urea, the end product, and excreted through the urine. So you might be wondering, why do we need to convert our excess amino acids into urea? Now, what does the word acid mean? Acid means that the pH is below 7, right? And that, if you have too much of it, it makes our blood become acidic, and that's not good, right? We don't want to be an acidic person. So our body is able to remove all of this in the form of urea. Urea is a non-toxic form. Okay, so all this is toxic. Can be toxic. Ammonia also can be toxic, but urea is non-toxic, and therefore it can be excreted in the urine. Okay, and urea is actually what gives our urine the distinctive smell. So you know how the urine smells, right? That's because of urea. Okay, actually, the amino group then can be recycled to produce glucose or fats. Okay, so even if you just had you didn't eat any any rice, right, or any of the carbohydrates, you only eat a meal that is full of protein, right? Barbecue, you just ate meat and meat and meat. Okay, actually, our body is smart enough to be able to convert the amino acids over time into glucose or fats. So we have learned about glucose. Glucose is being stored as glycogen in the liver, and we have learned about excess amino acids that are being converted to urea by the process of deamination. Okay, so this is a keyword also, deamination. Alright, then what happens after that? Okay, so some glucose and some amino acids are transported to other parts of the body by the hepatic vein. So over here, we can see the hepatic vein. So this is what the vein that brings the glucose and amino acids to the other parts of the body. Now, in the body, glucose is the energy source of all cells in our body via cellular respiration. Okay, so remember our mitochondria in the cell. We learned that the mitochondria is kind of like the powerhouse of the cell. It uses glucose as well as oxygen to release energy. So that is called respiration. Amino acids are used to make new protoplasm for cell growth and repair, as well as to make proteins such as enzymes, hormones, etc. Okay, so protoplasm, right? This includes the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. Okay, just a heads up, the cell membrane is actually made up by fats and lipids, but the cytoplasm, which is whatever all those things, the liquid found in the cell, right? Those are mainly made up of amino acids. Okay, let us now talk about the role of the liver. Okay, we have talked a lot just now about how the liver converts glucose into glycogen, and it also does deamination. Okay, so we have also learned about bile production. We have learned about the liver being able to regulate blood glucose levels. We have learned about deamination of excess amino acids. Oops. So these three things already is quite a lot. You might be thinking, wow, the liver is so amazing. It can do so many things. And that is totally true. Our liver is kind of like the jack of all trades in our body, the Swiss Army knife. It has actually much more than these functions. It has hundreds of functions, right? And today we're just going to learn about 5 or 6 of them. Okay, so our liver cells continuously produce bile, which is secreted into the gallbladder for temporary storage. So over here, you can see that the liver is producing and secreting the bile, which gets stored in the gallbladder. You don't need to worry about all these words over here, unless maybe you want to be a doctor or something. Then maybe you can study all this. Okay, so this one we have learned before. We have learned about glucose, right? The fate of glucose and the two hormones that control the amount of glucose in our blood. These two hormones are glucagon and insulin. Okay, so remember, which one helps to release more glucose into the blood? That is glucagon. And which one helps to store glucose? That is insulin. Okay, just a quick side note. You may have heard of this disease called diabetes. Okay, this disease called diabetes, which basically means that the body is not producing enough insulin, or somehow the body is not responding to insulin. So what happens in a diabetes patient is that the body does not produce functional insulin, or not enough of it. So imagine there's no insulin, and therefore this function is gone, right? So what happens? You are unable to control your blood glucose level because you only can release glucose into the blood, but you cannot store the glucose as glycogen anymore. So your blood glucose level will increase by a lot, and that is why they say that diabetes is like a disease where your blood sugar is too high. And that is bad because the sugar in the blood, right, can actually damage your red blood cells. So all these sugar particles can actually damage your red blood cells. And remember osmosis, right? Our good process that we learn, osmosis. This also would kind of mess up the osmosis level in our body. Okay, just a quick recap about deamination again. Deamination means that a amino acid is converted firstly to ammonia, then to urea, which is then excreted in the urine. Okay, this is for excess amino acids. Okay, right now I want to teach you the fourth function of the liver, which is storage of iron from the breakdown of hemoglobin. So when our red blood cells are old and worn out, they are destroyed in the spleen. Okay, where is the spleen, you might be wondering? Spleen is an organ that is somewhere near our stomach. Okay, but it's not too important for today's chapter. We just want to make reference to it. So the red blood cells contain hemoglobin, which consists of two things, which is heme and globin. So this hemoglobin will be sent back to the liver to be broken down and recycled. So this here is a diagram of the hemoglobin, which was previously stored within the red blood cell. So this was sent to the liver. Now heme basically contains iron, which is stored by the liver to be recycled in the production of new red blood cells. Then some of the heme is broken down into this thing called bilirubin, which is actually a component of bile. So our body is quite smart. It knows how to recycle, maybe even more so than how we humans recycle. Whenever the red blood cell dies, the leftover parts, which is the heme, will be sent back to the liver, and it can be either used for new red blood cells or convert into bile. Amazing, huh? Okay, so we learned a little bit about this. Let us lastly talk about detoxification. So what is detoxification? Now, you guys are all underage. You should not be drinking. But if you have ever drank alcohol, you know that it makes you feel somewhat differently. So the liver is the major organ that's responsible for detoxification, which is the process of converting harmful substances into harmless products. So one example would be alcohol metabolism by the enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase. So the liver contains this enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase, which basically detoxifies alcohol. So alcohol is called ethanol in this form, in this chemical formula, and this is toxic to our body. If you have too much of this in our body, it's bad for us. So our body is able to convert it into other forms which are not toxic. Okay, so this is called acetaldehyde acetate. So you might have heard of this term called Asian flush syndrome. Okay, so this term called Asian flush syndrome basically means that your face turns red when you drink alcohol. However, this is because in general, Asians kind of do not have as much alcohol dehydrogenase as compared to Caucasians. So this means that the alcohol tolerance is lower. Now, alcohol has several harmful effects. Okay, I'm not saying that you should not drink alcohol at all, but we have to be mindful that excessive alcohol consumption has a lot of harmful effects. Firstly, it can cause liver cirrhosis, which means liver scarring. So alcoholic, right, someone who drinks way too much alcohol, the liver is badly damaged, because the liver is the organ that does detoxification, right? So if you overwork it, you will scar it and damage it. You also increase the risk of gastric ulcers. So you know ulcers are like little holes in our mouth, right? But this can also happen in our stomach, and it will definitely feel very uncomfortable. There can also be neurological problems that arise from drinking too much alcohol, such as slowing down of brain functions. So this is a central nervous system depressant, which basically means that you become a little bit stupid. Okay, that's how alcohol works, right? You become a little bit, uh, yeah, not so clever anymore. Right, drunkenness means that you have a slow reaction time, and also, right, a lot of weird behavior. Reduce inhibition and self-control. So after drinking too much alcohol, you cannot control yourself. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what you're doing. Okay, and frequent intake will lead to addiction. So just like smoking, taking drugs, alcohol too can lead to addiction. Okay, because your body, you are so used to feeding your body alcohol and getting that little buzz high from alcohol that you become addicted to it. So these are the harmful effects of alcohol. Okay, the chapter overview, we have learned about the processes involved in nutrition. We have learned about the human digestive system. We have learned about the difference between physical and chemical digestion. We have learned about absorption of nutrients. We have learned about transport and assimilation of absorbed nutrients. We have learned about the role of the liver. Okay, this is actually a really long chapter. A lot of things that you have to remember. Okay, so you can recap by watching the videos that are shown previously. Okay, there are some learning activities that we can do when you're back in school, and some guides that these are not too important. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of the chapter. I hope to see you guys soon and to cover this chapter in real life. Okay, so thanks for watching. Right, please remember to do the work assigned on SLS and other platforms. Good luck, and Mr. Cho signing out. Bye.